So we have a signal that is coming from the live room and is being displayed by this meter input here. We got the signal coming in into the mic line. We flip the source into the microphone and we selected the phantom power and then raise the gain. Then we went down progressively into the fader section and raise the fader to unity gain. This already show you the second metering stage. This one we call it the first metering stage. When you raise the fader to start sending the sound elsewhere from here, we call the second metering stage the meter at the sound card. Once you've done that, you've done basically the first two metering stages. The third point that we discussed is to assign this sound to one of the buses if you want to continue using the signal flow. Otherwise, you stay here and do nothing. And we have two buses, the rec bus and the mix bus. These are identical buses, but traditionally and most logically, you want to assign all the sounds that are coming from the live room to the rec bus and all the sounds that are coming from Pro Tools, the DAW, to the mix bus. Keeping this to feel more logical, especially in a console like this one that is not an inline console, and so it requires that you assign tracks coming from the live room and tracks coming from the DAW on different channels. So for this demonstration, we're going to press the rec assign button so that we know that the signal present on channel strip number 1 with the fader up now is going to be directed to this bus. Remember, you don't turn this on, nothing will go from here onwards. The sound will go to the interface, but it will not proceed on any part of the console anymore. So let's move out to the master part of the console, which is this here, where you have 5 different sections that are very important for you, and I have displayed it all here. First are the metering areas, because those are our concern. We need to reach metering stage number 3 and number 4. This is what we call metering stage number 3, so the analog V meters over there. This is what we call metering stage number 4, which is the last stage before we can finally monitor. Here there is the off bus fader and the mix bus fader, so the rec bus fader and the mix bus fader. Here we have this speakers area where you assign which bus you want to play and how you turn on and turn off the speakers and cut them and raise the volume. There is a very important area here, which we'll see in other videos, but this is where the master knobs are for the cues, A and B, and for the FX cues. Here we have the fallback A and B, which means how do you organize the sound that goes to the headphones. Then you also have the returns area here, where you can direct back effects to the console to use it in your mixes. Other areas we will talk about in more advanced things. So we are now seeking to find metering stage number 3, and we need to look at this area first. This area is a sensitive fader, is an intelligent fader that stores and memorizes different parameters. And to assign a parameter, first you choose which type of record or mix bus are you talking to, and in this case we want to talk to just this column here because that's the record bus. When we will use sound from Pro Tools, we will talk to the mix column here. So I select here, I press this selector for the rec bus, and then I choose this button. Why this button? Because you can select different functions that the fader will regulate, but in this case I just wanted to talk to the fader, and so the fader is here. If I then adjust the fader, he will memorize the fader for the rec bus. If I switch to the mix bus, you see that it goes down because we never set the mix bus ever. If I set it, let's say, halfway through, yeah, that way. If I set it this way, then you can see that swapping the two is different volume recorder. And that's the beauty of it. For the moment, we don't need the mix bus, so we can deselect it and select back the rec bus, and that's what it is. Even if you don't see it, but if you set the value, that will remain, obviously. The moment I raised this, you should have looked there where you can see the signal. You can see that this is the rec left and right meter, and this is the mix left and right meter. This has no sound, this has sound. If I lower the fader now, here, you will see it going down. If I raise the fader, you will see it going back up, proving that to send this to the metering stage to see how much stuff we have on this bus, you will need to raise the fader. Moving on, now we need to go to the fourth metering stage, and that's easy peasy. You head over this area here and you say, which one do I want to meter before monitoring? And of course, if I do the mix bus, there's nothing there, but if I press the rec bus, you will notice that there is something in these meters, and that's the fourth metering stage. I deselect the button of the rec bus and reselect, and you see the sound coming in. That's the sound that can be fed to the speakers. If I select the mix bus, there's nothing in there. If I select the rec bus, there's sound. Last but not least, now you turn on the speaker. In your console at school is this one. Now I'm in another studio. Then you uncut the speakers and raise the volume, and this is the sound that I put in. And that's what you do. Those are the 4 metering stages.